All right, and we are good to go. So first off, thank you guys so much for coming on. It's been took a handful of months to get this ready, but again, like Jeff said before, it's 2020, so that's just the way things go, right? I wanted to jump right into it. The first thing was I wanted to get both you guys' perspectives on the Florida the nothing happening in Florida with regards to a lockdown compared to California, where it's the total opposite. I just wanted to get your guys' takes on that to start.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, I mean, each state's kind of playing it differently.
Right.
Obviously, depending on their numbers, which it's. I've said it before on our show. Your solution to the problem is always going to be off if your premise is fucked up.
Right.
And 300,000 people haven't. I mean, again, let me preface this: people are getting sick from COVID, without a doubt. Long story short, can we trust these numbers which they're using to necessitate these certain lockdowns and restrictions? State by state, it's really hard to say. Like I said, each governor and even their county executives and their county health people, it's kind of up to their discretion. It's just it's messed up, man. It's messed up. People, again, the first round of the lockdowns was all kind of fucked up. People were made to make a choice of like trying to make a living or following these restrictions, and at first we weren't really sure. Now that we're hearing even from the CDC's numbers that of the 300,000 or whatever, 10% or 9,000 or whatever it was have actually died from COVID. Everything else has been comorbidity. So it's like, not to get too deep down to it, but people have died from so much more. We just haven't shut down the freaking planet based off those things. And like Klaus Schwab rather, they're going to use this. They're going to use this as an opportunity. This was created, I do believe, whether it was Wuhan or wherever this was created, and they're going to use this to bring about this great reset, the fourth industrial revolution, the technocracy. Sorry, that's a long-winded answer, but
No.
Well,
this is
no, and I'll add to that if I can. It tells you which governors are compromised by big tech, big pharma, and China.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've said this before on our show, and I'll say it again. Throughout history, there's been four major groups that have been the most powerful people on the planet. First, it was the conquerors, the Genghis Khan. Then it was religious leaders. Then it was presidents of nations, and now it's the CEOs of big tech and big pharma. And 95% of big tech and big pharma's products are manufactured where? In China. Okay, so they are working in conjunction with China, and they are, in my mind, the Bill Gateses of the world. He bragged in an interview. His father was the head of Planned Parenthood and certainly started it. These people are eugenicists. They literally want to cull the population by roughly 7 billion people eventually.
Yeah.
They're truly satanic, evil human beings. And your president or prime minister, whatever you want to call him, Trudeau, is definitely in their pocket, 100%. And many of the leaders around the world, including Merkel and a bunch of others. These people, I think, with what's happening, you're witnessing an uncovering of everything, of every evil that literally these people have ever done.
Sorry, intentional uncovering or unintentional?
I think it's intentional. I think it's intentional, and it can't be stopped. And I think there will be citizens in nations like Germany and Canada. In my mind, I got suspended on Facebook for 30 days for saying that Justin Trudeau deserves to be hung for what he's done to his citizens. So, this is a very this is the deliberate release of a virus.
Is there?
And there's more coming. There's more coming. And so I try to explain to people, to ask your most liberal friends this question.
Right.
And get them to understand something, because they will agree with you on this first part. Ask the most left-leaning person can we agree that war is a racket simply to steal the resources of nations and make billions upon billions of dollars? Can we agree on that? And they'll say, yeah, we can agree on that. They go, okay, now let me explain to you that asymmetrical warfare, what we're witnessing right now with psyops and release of a weaponized virus. You think, because Jeff and I had her on our show with proved through documentation, Pentagon document, Kiliana Gafanchaiva, uncovered that America alone had 25 bioweapons laboratories that encircled Eurasia. And if you think big pharma and and modern nations, developed nations like China, America, and Russia, and others, would spend billions of dollars to create and weaponize viruses, only to leave them in test tubes and not release them and make billions of dollars. You are high as a kite.
Right. Okay. So now, at what point do you guys believe that, or maybe may not believe, when martial law could be instituted, not just in the U.S. but around the world, and be justified and be, in a reasonable sense, or do you not see that as a possibility?
Oh, it's coming. We've already. I mean, look at it. Everybody's already been conditioned for it, right?
Right.
All the lockdowns, stay-at-home orders, all this other stuff. You're already in martial law.
Yeah, exactly.
They're just not shooting you yet. Okay. So it's coming, in my mind, right after Christmas here in the United States.
Got you. What do you think?
Well, and when Trump, I don't see Trump turning around. If he does, he does. I don't think that changes the direction of where we're going. But I do believe we're looking at many of possible false flags. But keep your eye out for the white supremacist false flag here in America, or mostly likely here in America. They've been talking about it forever. With really kind of, I mean, the Proud Boys is like ran by a Mexican guy, I think it is. But anyway, they're going to use these kind of militias, these supposed right-wing groups, as being so radical, and then something's going to happen under the guise of them. I think all of it, like Pat said, we're already in a certain level of martial law. It just hasn't necessarily gone kinetic yet as far as them aggressing on us. But the powder keg is packed. Now all we need is, some kind of incendiary device to blow this up. Who knows what it exactly is? But yeah, they're already in place. When this all first happened, the military and the National Guard were already deployed to most of these cities. I don't know if they necessarily activated them, but they've already kind of put these mechanisms in place. And it's so weird, man. I would never want, that's what we fear, right? The martial law, the feds taking over, boots on the ground. That scares the shit out of all of us, and nobody wants it. But this is a part of the fucking psyop. All summer, these BLM, all these motherfucking paid people have been tricking off all summer, burning shit down. And we've all sat around like, what the fuck? Where are the police? If I go to the Quick Trip and knock it over, believe me, and try to hold people hostage, I'm getting swatted. And that's not a racial thing. I'm saying if any normal person does that. So why are these Chazes, why are these places allowed to pop up? Because they're pushing us, they're pushing us, they're pushing us. And when I say us, I mean just any God-loving, fucking just normal human being who's we're over it. We're over it because of COVID. We're over it because of this bullshit, social unrest. And now we're over it because we've been so fraudulently fucked over in this election. I'm not a Trump guy. I'm not a Biden guy. It's two sides of the same coin, in my opinion. But if this shit can go down in an American election, there will be no trusted American election again. We are in a banana republic, not even just the United States, around the fucking world. You see what's happening.
Right.
But,
so, yeah.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, with that being said, and this might warrant a bit of a longer answer from the both of you, but what do you guys see with respects to the narrative of China versus Russia? Is China the real threat, where Russia the last handful of years was more of just a narrative kind of thing? Or what do you guys see when you take a step back and you look at the big picture?
Well, for me personally, China is in the One Belt, One Road, the emergence of the One Belt, One Road, now the rail system, the road system, and then the maritime route, which is called the String of Pearls. They're essentially kind of the beta test, or the model, if you will, for this new technocracy, social credit, etc. Russia is definitely on board with that, and has. It's so crazy how I've been learning lately how deeply Russia has been infiltrating our country and basically communism for fucking decades, man, and decades. And a part of this is a big tech transfer. The country that's going to be leading this technological transformation is Israel, and no one really talks about that.
Right.
But you have all of these players involved. You have Israel, you have Russia, you have all of this reshaping. Look at all these peace deals in Israel with Bahrain, with Oman, and all these countries. This is all part of what they call a Greater Israel Project. So, I mean, this is obviously a chess game, but we're definitely going to see more skirmishes playing out. We said this fucking ages ago on the show, where you start seeing conflicts geopolitically in Eurasia. Odds are 8 out of 9 out of 10, that's going to be where the rail and the route's going through. You look at what's going on in the stands with the Uyghurs, that's all along that route. You look at what's going on in Azerbaijan and Armenia, that's right along that route as it goes into Turkey and into Europe, northern India and China, and those skirmishes. Like this is all part of the geopolitics that's playing out. And it's crazy time to fucking be alive, man.
Oh,
So
100%.
yeah, and on top of that, you know what the Chinese obviously are doing this to us along with their buddies in big tech and big pharma and our government. So many have been compromised and bought out and bribed and everything else. They're all guilty. Numerous people on both sides of the aisle are guilty of this. But one thing that is not being brought up and talked about either also is the Wahlberg family in Sweden. There was a hearing not that long ago where an aide to somebody that worked in the consulate, one of our diplomats, let's put it that way, was on the phone with President Trump, and President Trump was trying to get basically investigations done worldwide on our politicians and Clintons and Obama and their dirty dealings, the Bidens, everybody else. So he had secured. This is why you saw some of these military deals go through, because they agreed to do these investigations and hand over the information on all these criminals within our government, right?
Right.
And also, President Trump knows, and not very many people know, and I had to be alerted by a guy from Sweden, who lived in Sweden, who had investigated the Wahlberg family from Sweden for many, many years. The Wahlberg family owns, and I'm not talking like the actor Wahlberg,
Yeah.
a very wealthy family in Sweden, the Wahlberg, who have basically controlled communication since radios were invented. They were the ones that allowed and facilitated communications to develop in times of war, especially, right? And they've been in control of communications ever since. And Trump asked during that call, "What about Sweden? I want to know about Sweden."
Right.
And so he knows about the Wahlberg family, and he knows that he needs them on our side, because the Wahlberg family, that's how that microprocessing plant got moved from Taiwan to Arizona. And those microprocessors are what a nation needs to continue developing. And China can't continue to develop. China eventually goes dark without those microprocessors. So that pissed China off in a big way, because now they're scared. And I said the other day on Instagram video I did, if somebody releases that information and that technology, they get their ass shot on sight, because that right there is so important in this war. The Wahlberg family has the power, literally, to flip a switch and turn the country of China off and send them into the dark ages if they want.
I think they own Ericsson. I'm not sure, but no, that semiconductor company you're talking about. See, this is a part of the asymmetrical warfare. No shots are being fired, but countries are being taken down. It's called the Taiwan Semi Manufacturing Company. It's like the main semiconductor producing manufacturing company in the world. So many other companies design them, but these guys actually manufacture them. And Trump's made it so Huawei, that tech company in China, that was the heart of what drove their technological machine with these semiconductors, and now they can't get access to them. So now they are super compromised. But we're kind of letting them set up this technological infrastructure, face cameras and everything, and then they'll not slowly, there could be a hard war, but they'll be basically phased out. Because you look at companies or organizations like ASEAN, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, which aren't necessarily rolling with China so much. And the US is making deals with all these countries which are a part of ASEAN, Malaysia, the Philippines, everything. So it's all kind of shifting, but they still need China for now. But China is growing like a champ. If you look at the places they're developing and building in Africa, I mean, it's full on. Like, it's really crazy because the grand chessboard is changing so very fast right now, but through more nonlinear asymmetrical warfare, they're able to get so much more done so much quicker, because no one wants to see people getting blown up and dying. It's just bad PR for whatever country.
Right. So when you speak
do it on the low, I'm sorry.
No,
I'm
please.
just saying, when you do it on the low, clandestine ops, cyber ops, chemical stuff, propaganda, covert stuff. I mean, it's out of sight, out of mind, but so much behind the scenes is changing.
Right. So now, because we've taken this kind of global perspective, like you said, Jeff, with the grand chessboard, so to speak, what are your guys' perspectives, if you even have any, on the Iranian the assassination of the Iranian nuclear scientist over there? Do you guys think it was Israel? Do you think it's a bit of a distraction to distract from what's going on here, or what do you guys?
Well, I think it's definitely not a distraction. There's a power struggle. I forget his name. Who was the general that they killed over there? I forget his name.
Soleimani.
Soleimani. So they took him out. They took the nuclear guy out, and then they took somebody else out like a couple days after that. So,
Right.
in my humble opinion, just through my research, and who knows, I could be wrong, as well as the greater Israeli project, there's a new kind of Persian empire they're building over there. And there's a huge power struggle going on behind the scenes in Iran. I mean, there always was, because the Iran's more controlled by the West, especially the spiritual side, the mullahs, more than people realize. Like when the Ayatollah Khomeini came in to take out the Shah, he was chilling in Paris, protected by the West, until we decided to bring him in and get rid of the Shah. So,
Right.
I mean, right now, man, there's a Rouhani, he's Western schooled, Western taught. I mean, he's definitely Western controlled, as well as under the thumb of Israel, in my humble opinion. And so there's a power struggle going on. Soleimani was trying to make peace with the Saudis. And I think even Saudi Arabia is kind of under the thumb of the West and Israel as well. So I believe there's some, almost like here in the US, there's a real legitimate power struggle within these governments as to which direction they're going. It's like some of them are more war hawkish and hardliner and
Right.
the globalist, if you will, and others are a little bit more traditional as far as how they want their country to proceed. So these internal wars, like any time in power and politics and dynasties, et cetera, you have these assassinations and power struggles, sometimes the military and the government or whatever. So there's definitely more to this. And as much as, we always got to have that boogeyman. So kind of Iran, any Islamic country is kind of our boogeyman. But again, countries like Iran are way more ran by the West than people realize.
Yeah. And Soleimani was, one of my connections to the intelligence world is a guy that I can't even say his name, and he doesn't even have his real name anymore because he was in the agency. And his history is it's incredible. I mean, he and one of his good buddies, they were in the military, were running guerrilla teams against each other, destabilizing nations in South America, right? So then he was an agency guy, an intel guy, and now he owns technology companies, cell phone companies in North Africa. That way they can track people. And he explained it to me this. I said, all right, what's going on with the Iranian general getting whacked? And he said, well, he was an expert in asymmetrical warfare, and word is that Soleimani sent a bunch of his soldiers over and got them sick on purpose in Wuhan, and then flew them all over the world to spread this thing as fast as they could. So that's part of the plan. So Soleimani, that's why Soleimani got whacked, because he's an expert in asymmetrical warfare.
That makes a lot of sense.
We know that the Iranians, through that Uranium One deal that Clinton facilitated and made a shitload of money off of, and a bunch of other corrupt politicians did as well, that uranium coming from our land, going to Russia, and then obviously some of it making its way into Iran to be turned into weapons. That's why the scientists got killed.
Got you. Wow, that's some pretty crazy stuff. But the next thing I wanted to ask was your guys' perspectives on Snowden and Assange. And the reason why I bring that up is because in the last handful of weeks, maybe you guys have seen what's been going on social media of them people wanting Trump to pardon them.
Well, Lindsey Graham, South Carolina senator, who was in on arming ISIS with John McCain, they facilitated it. We strongly believe that through an offshore company, they own a big portion of Arsenal weapons manufacturing in Bulgaria that was making the weapons that were going to ISIS. But he tweeted, that President Trump should not pardon Snowden because he was a traitor. And Snowden then retweeted it and commented and said, there was not one thing that I did, not one secret that I revealed got anyone killed. Not a single person got killed because of the information I gave out. It actually revamped and is currently being used as a reason to revamp what the government has done to the citizens and what they tried to do to Trump. So, I tell you what, a lot of people like Lindsey Graham, Mitch McConnell, Republicans, these guys are bad people, man. They're in the pocket of China as well. If Trump is who he says he is, and I'm starting to believe finally a little more. Early on, I believed he was a white hat, but now I think he's just flat out pissed off, man. I think that he is going to rain hellfire down on these people, and everybody's going to get exposed for the shitbags that they are. I can't imagine the thousands of people be arrested if I just see it going down when that martial law hits here after Christmas. I think they're going to be scooping people up. I mean, if they don't scoop people up, then I see citizens absolutely revolting, 100% in this country.
What do you think, Jeff? Snowden and Assange?
It's oddly enough, I never followed it too much, kind of like a tertiary following. For me, just hearing what they said, like Snowden, for example, what did he say that we didn't already know? Like, they're watching you like a motherfucker.
Right.
Like, we know they've been, but now obviously it's a more organized kind of project and program to be able to, fusion centers where they can, listen for buzzwords and all that other shit. And even Assange, I mean, Daniel Ellsberg in the Pentagon Papers was the first one to specifically write about atrocities in war, particularly My Lai, where they rounded up all these people in this South Vietnamese village and killed them. Like, war crimes happen. So that big video he did, Collateral Murder, yeah, it's fucking sucks. And it's like incredibly difficult to watch. But we know our governments and other governments in war do that shit. Nothing was necessary. I didn't hear anything about the black market economy of funneling people and children and body parts and weapons and drugs. I didn't hear who really did 9/11, who really smoked JFK. I mean, it's like, I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
Kind of. And like I said, I haven't gone into as much. It really sucks. And as kind of somewhat of a journalist, somebody who sometimes speaks against organized narrative, it's actually really crazy that they can just round people up and hold them, without really trial. I mean, that's bullshit. But for me, it's kind of, I don't know. I mean, like, against Snowden in particular, I really don't know shit about him as much. But yeah, that's about it.
So when you guys take a look at, for example, someone like George Soros, which I've heard you guys mention in a few of your episodes before, what specific, we know he's got branches all over the place and connections everywhere, but what do you think someone like him are specifically focusing on right now, currently, with what's going on?
I mean, it's an I'm sorry, go ahead, Pat.
No, that's all right. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, it's just the this has been such a this has been going on for decades.
Right.
We've been infiltrated by the ilk of George Soros. I mean, going back fucking, a long fucking time. I hate to say it, but Eugene McCarthy, he was right. This country's been fucking infiltrated. And so this is kind of their end game right now, because now we're moving into possible mandatory vaccines and the elimination of cash and digital contact tracing. So, I mean, I think his job is to right now do what he's been continuing to do, because it's ordo ab chaos. They want to bring order to the chaos they created. So they got to burn shit down and, create all this chaos so they can then come in and save the fucking day. Right. And so that's why there's so many parts to this now. After 2016, we said it so many times on the show, man, this next election is going to be fucking nuts. Simply from the sociological standpoint of, they're going to divide us on everything we're already divided on. Race, religion, politics, because it was crazy in 2016. Right. Families breaking up and shit like that. And I'm like, 2020 is going to be crazy. Now have they not only played all these groups off against each other, now they've added fucking psychological trauma, if you will, from people having lockdown and COVID. Look how many people are killing themselves and all this crazy shit.
Got you.
Well, that's on the fact of people killing themselves. This hit home. A young boy in Iowa. During all of his classmates are on a Zoom, the teacher's teaching, they're all on a Zoom. Kid shoots himself during the Zoom thing.
I heard about that. Yeah, that's. I mean, it's.
That was an Iowa kid, and then there was a kid right across the river in Illinois just a week ago. His father came home. The kid's a really good wrestler. He's a 12-year-old also. He's a really good wrestler and a really good football player. And his dad came home from work and took his gun off and put it on the counter, went out to start the grill, turned around, and the sliding glass window was right there, and his 12-year-old son put a gun in his dad's gun in his mouth. This shit is happening all over the country, and they are
Yeah.
abusing our children, And I tell you what, this is getting to the point where, I'm going to start snatching up. I don't want to visit violence on anybody, but you almost have to get to a point where you grab somebody by their shoe collar and you pull them into your face and you go, "You're going to change. You're going to change, or I'm going to physically make you fucking change." Because you're not doing this to my children anymore, man. You're not doing this to my kids anymore.
Well, and again, it's happening so much just with the kids, but even adults. Adults are fucking, beating their children, beating their dogs, beating their wives. Like I said, killing themselves, relapsing, and it's just. I mean, the psychological trauma they've wrought on everyone is just kind of one part of it. But again, to kind of go back to what you're saying, like what Soros doing, they need this implosion, man. They need us to turn on each other, because then on top of that, they'll rebuild their new normal. But they definitely, like Pat was saying, they have to cull some of us. I'm sorry.
So speaking of implosion, that's a perfect transition, actually. Do you guys ever see, at least in the developed countries, there ever being a traditional form of warfare ever again? Or do you think this moving forward, it's all asymmetrical intelligence, all that kind of stuff?
I think you're going to see physical conflict. I think it's coming. It's coming without a doubt. There's just too many pissed off citizens right now. That I just don't see it not happening. And a lot of my friends, former special forces guys that live on the East and West Coast, out in the Virginia area and San Diego, California, down by big Marine bases, down in Nevada where there's Air Force bases. All of them are saying the same thing. They have never seen this much military equipment and air movement in their lives. This is a massive amount of military equipment and people being moved right now. We are literally getting ready for potential invasion. And up in Maine, a good friend of mine who lives in Maine, there was talk about a fighter jet dropping bunker busting bombs and killing a bunch of Chinese soldiers up on the border, right? Well, this guy my friend lives up there, and he goes, I felt two massive booms, and they were
said it was an earthquake. It was said as to be an earthquake.
But he said there's no way these were earthquakes. It was just
I heard about that.
Two separate massive boom.
Yeah.
And just the earth shook.
And that F-16 that went down right up in Michigan that had ordnance on it, supposedly during a training exercise, that could mean nothing, but some strange shit.
What do you think, Jeff, with respects to there being traditional warfare?
Well, I mean, on a global scale, it depends on how developed the nation is. Like, we're moving more and more into asymmetrical warfare as we conduct warfare on a global level. But like in the middle ground, you're always still going to have your soldiers, your Marines, your Army, etc. And even when Civil War picks up, some of it will be not necessarily. It'll still be kinetic. It'll be more guerrilla stuff, because to hate to use the term right versus left, like the right. So many more guns, so much more training. These guys are, it's just an ass whooping, but you're still going to see stuff more on a guerrilla type shit, taking out power grids, like localized ambushes and shit like that, because face to face, if you will, or full on battlefield, it's just a wrap. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you're always, depending on the level of the conflict, and like I said, how developed the nation is, what type of conflict you're talking about, it's definitely moving more towards asymmetrical. But like I said, you're always going to have those boots on the ground.
Right. Now, Pat, you were saying just before Jeff answered as well, you were talking about how your friends, former SEALs and what have you, special operations guys, are starting to see a lot more aircraft coming across the skies and all that, particularly in the US. Now, this is something I'm asking because I'm sure my audience would love to know. I know you guys have your sources within the intelligence community and all that. Is there anything you guys can say with respects to UFOs? Now, I do want to say before you guys answer that if you guys were given a choice, as in, do you think it's strictly military? Do you think some of it's extraterrestrial, or what do you guys think of all that kind of stuff?
Well, I've never thought it had to be mutually exclusive. I think a lot of the military stuff we've seen has possibly been back engineered by something we've either had exposure to or whatever. But it's it's very interesting, the timing of these kind of conversations. Even months ago, the Pentagon released this footage, and this Israeli Air Force guy, I think, said, there's a galactic federation watching us.
Right.
I mean, I've heard that for a long time. I used to listen to old Art Bell and Coast to Coast back. I mean, that's not a unique story, but the timing of it, as we build a space force, as we're trying to, in a race with China, to militarize space. We've heard of the old Project Bluebeam. I mean, it's the timing of it's just interesting that we're hearing about the aliens again, but seemingly from more and more legitimate sources. I'm just a born skeptic, so whatever it is, it's going to be,
Well,
absolutely.
I think that they're, they, as Jeff was mentioning, the Pentagon releasing, yes, UFOs are real. Then the Israeli general, former head of, was it their Air Force or their space program? I don't even know. But he said, that aliens are real and they've been among us. They just don't want to show themselves yet. And then Trump sitting in his office with the head of the general of Space Force, the head guy of Space Force, saying, we've got new missiles that are 17 times faster than any missile that's ever been created. And he goes, I call them super duper missiles.
Yeah, I saw that.
And I think he was saying that to plant the seed of letting people know. It's almost like I started putting pieces of the puzzle together, and I went, wait a minute, all of this information coming out, and planting seeds, and at least Trump may be trying to give us little keys. Better way to create a new world order than to do a massive false flag attack on major cities around the country and around the world with these super duper missiles that nobody can even see, taking out buildings all over the place, and UFOs flying around, and saying we're at war with the galactic freaking, conquerors, and everybody needs to get together, and we need one army and all this other shit, which was part of Agenda 21.
Right, exactly. So one last thing on the UFO subject I did want to ask was, and I don't mean to be too protruding or too direct, but if you guys were to ask in a hypothetical situation, any of your intelligence sources, if they're familiar with this, would they be able to provide you with an answer off the record? Or do you think they're not familiar with the whole UFO?
First of all, I have no intelligence sources.
Okay.
That's my intelligence source.
Doesn't mean they have to be. I'm not saying they have to be alien. I'm just saying UFOs of some type of military craft or reverse engineered, whatever.
I think it's like Jeff said, not mutually exclusive. I think it's going to be both if it happens.
Gotcha.
I think it's going to be both, potentially, or look, the false flag UFO attack. I'm sure we've reverse engineered a ton of shit. We've heard people that used to work at Area 51 and all that. Yeah, absolutely.
Are there certain things, if you say, for example, Pat, if you were to ask them in a closed off setting, are there certain things where they would say, listen, I can't talk about that. Like, I'm sorry, but I can't.
My best source, he just says, look, you just can't say my name. You can't tell who I am.
Right.
Stuff. And I go, to be a legitimate journalist, you have to reveal your all that other stuff. But here's the thing. What legitimizes our sources is going back in time and listening to our shows and realizing that everything we said came fucking true. And it's happened. Right? That's all we need. And that's why our ratings on iTunes and other platforms started to crush, a lot of major, like Fox News and CNN and all these other personalities that have their own shows. We've been destroying them in ratings, and the reason we're destroying them in ratings is not because we're more eloquently. Jeff might be. Jeff probably is a lot more intelligent than 99% of them, but it's because we've been telling people the accurate stuff. Right? We've been right. We've been correct all along, and so that's the proof's in the pudding.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I was going to say, so with respects to, I just want to move a little bit more to the sort of the bio or the super soldier programs. There's been a lot of talk about that lately, but I personally feel, and I could be wrong, I feel like this has been something that world governments have been experimenting with for probably decades now. What are your guys' perspectives, knowing having the sources you have and knowing what's going on, and obviously, you know, traveling the world and being all around and seeing things? What do you think, is a super soldier scenario a legitimate threat, or do you think it's just something countries say to kind of talk shit to each other?
Well, super soldiers in our CIA program that have gone on for years, you know, part of, you know, MK Ultra and all of that, you know, the music stars, you know, the Frank Zappas and Jim Morrison of the Doors and others who had parents who were in the intelligence community and CIA and all the other shit. We actually had a girl on our show who was educated in all the best schools, can play any musical instrument, you know, all of that. She was her dad was a CIA scientist, and they deliberately put their kids into these positions and get them so good with music and singing and super intelligent because they've gone to really good schools, all the other stuff. And then they move them into positions of influence, right? So that's the super soldier scenario that we're familiar with, although now you've got China working on genetically changing soldiers to make them better, right? Which is some, you know, I'm not putting anything in my body that alters my DNA. I'll tell you that. That shit's including the vaccine.
Right. What do you think, Jeff, with respects to the super soldier programs going on?
Yeah, I mean, it's like Pat was alluding to. I mean, the genome project, which was in the 90s. I mean, I think.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to say quickly that the reason why I asked this question is because if you heard a couple of days ago, France came out and said after China, they're developing a super soldier program just because they kind of feel like they're forced to, which is why I ask if this is a way of countries. Sorry, go ahead, please.
Well, again, if they're public with it, they've been doing it for a long time. Right. You know, like I said, they had PlayStation CD laser technology when we were playing Atari. Right? It's just how they slowly kind of mete it out to you. So I believe, to answer your question, yeah, I think DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Program Agency, something like that. Those guys are into shit that would just blow your freaking mind. So again, if they're publicly talking about it, without a doubt, and through like genetic manipulation, and there's also like an aspect of kind of predictive programming to this. If you remember the movie Gattaca years ago, dating myself a bit, with like Ethan Hawke, where they just made genetically perfect, quote unquote, perfect people, just all spliced together through genes. So through nanotechnology and shit like that, I think we're going to be seeing, you know, if you get shot, some self-healing type things, you know, the wound closes up fast, way faster than normal through nanobite technology and nanotechnology, shit like that. I mean, it's kind of funny, you know, we all love Captain America, but he's the first kind of super soldier, kind of roid head. You know, he got the serum. And of course, it was a comic book, but I mean, that was kind of based off real shit and real stuff they were already studying as far as, I mean, granted, you can't jump up. Well, definitely. And that's kind of, again, how they slowly put it in your brain. But I mean, it's so crazy a time to be alive. Like, so much has changed. You guys remember, I don't know how old you are, bro, but just regular TVs, like the information superhighway is going to change your fucking world. And they're basically talking about the internet. And that was only 20 years ago, man. Look at where we're at now. We could store so much more information on the fucking tip of a pen than, you know, ever before. It's just technology is changing so fast right in front of us. But yeah, I think super soldier shit is definitely a possibility, if not real already.
Cool. The last question I did want to ask before finishing this up, and again, thank you guys so much. So the UK seemed to be, at least publicly, the first country that obviously gave authorization for the vaccine and all that, but they were also the first country to issue out those ID cards for everyone that took the vaccine. And then, if I'm not mistaken, over here in Canada, Justin Trudeau, who already was the first one to mention the Great Reset, at least publicly, is now encouraging Canadians here to have these cards as well. And one of the things that I don't like personally is that they're pretty much saying, well, you don't have to take the vaccine, but you want to get on a plane, you got to take it. You want to get on a train, you got to take it. Things like that.
Again, this is the Chinese beta test or model, if you will, of the new normal. You know what I mean? You're exactly right. You're not forced to do it. Hey, you're cool, but you can't do shit without it. You can't go to work. You can't rent a car. You can't ride a bus. You can't public transportation. Your kids can't go to school.
Right.
This is where the rubber is going to meet the road. But again, in my opinion, if you guys are going to do all this fucking horrible shit over here, let us do a breakaway spot over here and leave us the fuck alone.
Right.
You know what I mean? Don't set something up where we can't participate in and then tell us we can't, figure out a spot of our own to not be fucked with in this way.
Well, that's where the financial system comes in, right? Gotcha. So if the globalists win in this fight and they're able to create a digital currency that's based on nothing, then they can control like a grocery store chain. Okay, if you don't make it mandatory for people to have vaccines that come in your store, then you can't bank with us anymore. Like you're not gonna have money. We're gonna put you out of business. So that's how from the top they control all this stuff, right? So right now, I'm friends with a guy who is former SEAL, but he's also dual citizen, American and Filipino. And he's part of one of the Filipino royal family. And he's one of my good connections as far as all the gold. There's so much gold in the Philippines that's stored there from World War II, right? Right. And so they've taken ownership of that. And Duterte, the president of the Philippines, absolutely just hated Obama because he knew Obama was a globalist and was basically trying to steal his gold, right? Right. And putting pressure on him and all kinds of other stuff. Well, Duterte loves Trump because Trump and a few others are doing their best to create a digital currency backed by that gold and the gold that we suppose. Okay. So that's the big fight that's going on right now because the side that's successful in that fight, that one fight right there will decide the future of mankind, whether we're slaves or not.
Are you speaking specifically about things like Bitcoin or that kind of concept?
Yeah, that kind of concept, a digital currency based off of the real tangible gold, right?
Gotcha.
Back to a gold standard. So, and that's what we're looking at. So when you draw all the lines of the bubbles with all the different fights going on, that's in my mind probably without a doubt, the most important one. So we've got to win that one. We have to win that one.
So you would say more important than, well, I guess in a certain sense it kind of ties in with everything, but more important than, for example, the traditional forms of warfare and things like that, for sure.
Well, the way I look at it is, we had a former SEAL on our show that runs a training facility down in Florida, great guy. And I said, you guys are experts at sneaking into places, not being seen.
Right.
Taking people or killing people and getting out, and nobody even knew you were there, right? But if Skylink is allowed to continue and the surveillance state is put into full force, you can't do stuff like that anymore.
Yeah.
Right? How do you sneak into a place then? How do you do anything? They're going to see you coming from a mile away. So that's a big problem. That's a big problem with the surveillance stuff that they're trying to do. So in my mind, I mean, it's kind of a scary thought, but the grid needs to go down completely for it to be reset. You know what I mean? The grid needs to be fried to go down, and that kills a lot of people by itself, right?
Got you. And sorry, one last thing I did want to ask you guys was, because a lot of this it's not even your guys' opinions, it's just the evidence tying back to China. Do you see any threat from Russia? Not to say to be buddy with them, but do you see them to be any type of existential threat right now or in the next 5-10 years?
Theirs is way more of a subversive right now kind of warfare. I don't think they can military match up against anybody. I think Russia's, like most countries are, I'm cool with you until we're not cool with anymore. I mean, it's a kind of symbiotic relationship right now, but it's a means to an end. Right. I think in the end they're trying to. They've got China in such a bad place, really in a corner. They are fucking scared because their economy is about to collapse, and they're not going to be able to expand technological anymore. So now, kind of, they're our bitch, or Israel and Russia's bitch. But it's interesting for me because it's like whoever controls the technology and whoever has their hand on the switch and who's monitoring kind of everything, that's who's really running shit. Gotcha. And it's hard to tease out who exactly that is right now, but it's Yeah, it's crazy, man.
So you're saying right now, if for example, if you're Vladimir Putin right now, you're kind of taking a sidestep and kind of moving in, I guess we could say, the shadows, so to speak, because the focus has been on China lately, or
Well,
I mean,
I think Russia's smart enough to know that Trump has gotten to the Wahlberg family and moved the microprocessing plant to Arizona for the technology for us to be able to put China in the dark ages if we want. That, that's the biggest thing. So Russia probably recognizes, one, that we've got the technology edge, and two, our military don't want to fuck with.
yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, for sure, militarily, for sure.
Our military is ridiculous. Our military is by far the most powerful in the world. China will gladly sacrifice 20 million young men who are never married and never have kids because there's not enough women in China anyway. They'll just throw bodies at us. But I mean, that's going to be.
Do you think technologically China even comes close technologically, or no, to the United States?
Not militarily.
Okay.
Although the Clintons facilitated a business deal when Bill Clinton was in,
Right.
with a Chinese company on satellite technology and stuff like that. I'm telling you, man, these people have been screwing this country over for a long time, and all that shit's going to come out.
Jeff, anything you wanted to say before we finish it up?
No, like, again, it's chess, not checkers, man. Even as long as I've been into this shit, some of this I didn't realize how far some of this has gone back, and how it's been a slow infiltration and really a massively wickedly brilliant psyop. And it's the position we're in. It almost sucks because we just sat around while the python slowly wrapped around us, and now it's in squeeze mode, and like, oh, get off me, python. We own a lot of fucking responsibility here in America and across the globe, but particularly in America, for letting this shit get this far. We sit around and we fucking celebrate and marvel at more Dragon X satellites going up from Elon Musk. Oh my God, isn't he so fucking cool? As he slowly builds this smart grid that is really just going to change how everyone fucking lives the world. After 9/11, the invisible enemy of terrorism, we did anything to fucking stop it. Yeah, go ahead and spy on me. Thanks, Edward Snowden, for letting us know, but fucking we want him to spy on us because we don't want that to ever happen again. Fuck yeah, we'll take our shoes off. Yeah, you can body scan me. You know what I mean? Fucking NDAA for sure. Go ahead and arrest me without a fucking lawyer and possibly assassinate me if you deem me as a threat to this fucking country. I mean, we just let this shit go, and now here we are with COVID. Again, this invisible enemy that we're just giving up so much shit for. Again, the lockdown 1, now we're on lockdown 2. Now we're on lockdown 2, knowing what the first one was like. And the only, acquiescence is submission, dude. Stop fucking acquiescing to this shit. You can't just be a couple of restaurants we're seeing press conferences for in New York or wherever. It has to be a massive fucking resistance, because the only way this shit can go down is if we participate in it.
And it seems
you can't be using the fear-based trauma is what they've been doing for fucking decades, and they fucking freak us out.
Sorry?
No, I'm just saying that the fear-based trauma that the social engineers use to allow these kind of progressions of our rights, etc., it has to fucking end. We have to recognize how they're fucking playing this, man.
Yeah, Jeff and I were streaming like right when they announced the lockdown. Our first episode, we were like, do not comply. If everyone doesn't close their business and everyone doesn't wear a mask, they have no power. They lose all of their power. And now I go to the grocery store and I'm maybe one of 3 people in the whole place without a mask on, and I just look at people and just go, this is ungodly. So when we understand as far back as we have of what was coming and what was going to happen, you can imagine my reaction when somebody tells me that I have to wear a mask, order food or whatever, right? And I've had 2 guys, I just had it happen to me in like my favorite pizza restaurant. Jeff, you know about that restaurant. They told me I had to wear a mask. I said, I'm not doing it, man. I'm spending my money elsewhere. And when all these people are out of jobs and there's no jobs to find and they're starving, they're going to realize why eventually when they're carving the freaking family dog up on the table after they cook that son of a bitch. So, I had one guy down in Kansas. He was a customer at a gas station. I come out of the bathroom and he's probably my height and 300 and some pounds, just clinically obese, terminally obese. And he shakes his head at me like, no, and I go, something wrong with your fucking neck? And he goes, you're not wearing a mask. I go, I don't need to wear a mask. And he goes, it's not about you. And I go, and he goes, it's about everybody else. And I go, you? I go, let's talk about you. I go, it's obvious to me that not one time in your fucking life have you cared about your health. You've been stuffing your face with donuts your entire fucking life, and now me wearing a mask is supposedly going to save you. I said, fuck you. And the whole grocery store, I mean, or the whole gas station, there was like 10 people in there. I looked around, they were all staring at the floor. They were fucking mortified. And I'm not going to take any shit off anybody.
Right.
When they tell you to wear a mask after all the research that we've spent and knowing what this is and knowing all about it, look, man, you can't stop the spread of a virus. You can't do it. Okay. It's going to run its course, and it's going to kill those who are the weakest among us, just like the flu, just like the pneumonia. And I'm very sorry. And I pray for people, you know, who have lost loved ones. And, you know, I don't want that to happen, but it's inevitable. But wearing a mask and lockdowns is not how you solve this problem.
Gotcha. Well, guys, I wanted to thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your guys' day. You're welcome back anytime you guys like. And yeah, we'll just wrap it up there.
Well, and if you don't mind, bud, let me when we get done, we'll throw it on. Give me an MP3 of this, and we'll throw you on our platform. You got a pretty big show, but we got a few million listeners with 100+ countries going on. We'd be more than happy to show you some love.
You guys are certainly much bigger than I am. I really would appreciate that. Thank you so much.
That's awesome.
Again, you guys are welcome back any freaking time you like.
Absolutely. I appreciate it, man.
Thanks, guys. We'll talk after.
Take care.
Bye.
Take care, guys. Take care.